All right, guys. So I'm gonna try and be as quick as I can with the script showing now. Right. So this is assuming that you've already done the SSH vid that I had made, where we made it so that the downstream router can SSH into the upstream router passwordless, right? And that's just as simple as just generating keys and then giving it to the upstream router to be able to, obviously identify and be like, oh yeah, you cool, you can come in, right? So yeah, like I said, the goal, eventually we're going to try and get this automated where the downstream router is able to automatically pull all the host names for all of the devices in the upstream router, right? And the IP addresses, right? Get them all to fill so that we are able to just navigate naturally to it, right? So like because I just did it, right? I just cleared it. You see, I can't navigate to this server I have, right? That's on my upstream router because it doesn't know, the downstream obviously doesn't know nothing about that host name, right? Okay, cool. So let me run my script so you can see, just so you can get a good little example here. 1 second here while I whoops. Oh yeah, here we go, right? So just again as a reminder, right? These snapshot routers have ash, and I don't think that um the open world routers, like the actual base installations, I believe that they actually come with bash. I'm not entirely 100% because this is my first time actually having to deal with the shell stuff. But from what I was reading, it seemed like, because when I was trying to figure out the shell stuff, it seemed like these open world routers by default come with bash, but the snapshots, since they're snapshots, they don't come with a lot of that stuff like Lucy and I guess bash. So I designed this script to work with ash, okay, so that way it can also work on snapshot routers. Okay, so with that being said, as you see, you saw some output. Don't worry, like the debug stuff, I'll get rid of eventually. But yeah, so as you can see, this will be the stuff that we inserted into the DHCP file, right? Because what we did was we connected to the upstream router, got the dhcp.lease file that the upstream router has, is going to have a list of all the devices, their IP addresses, host names, blah, blah, blah. And then we actually put that information in the DHCP file of the downstream router as config domain entries, right? Because that's what would be here. You see, we gave it the host name, the IP address, and we commented the MAC address. We are going to eventually remove that for whatever reason, and maybe this is an actual bug of OpenWrt that maybe the developers didn't. I don't know, didn't really think about too much. But if there's any comments in the DHCP file, it doesn't like it at all, and so it won't actually work. It won't let me connect to it. So if I refresh this, right, you'll see here that, see, obviously it grabbed all the devices, it automatically filled them up. But if I sit here and it grabbed, yeah, as you can see here, it obviously worked in that it found the devices that's in the upstream router, added them as the main entries in the downstream router. All that's cool and fine, right? If I sit here and I refresh this, nothing happens. It doesn't work, right? If I sit here and I cat into, come on, if I cat into the DHCP file, as you can see, right, you see my entries in there, right, and it has the commented lines in there. If I was to sit here and let me just move this real quick, it'll sound like this, right? And save and apply, apply configuration. I don't know, maybe it just needs a reboot or something. If that ends up being the case, I can obviously like add, well, I don't know about a full-fledged reboot, but you know what I mean, right? But now, as you see, I just moved it, so I didn't really make a real change. I think what, right? Because VFrame was underneath. Yeah, as in underneath the Almighty device, so you should see move it up top. But you'll see that, yeah, see, it did move it up top. But you see, it gutted out the commented lines out, right? Which for me is a bit problematic because I relied on the MAC addresses so I can like catch if it's the same device with just a different IP address, so that way I can just update the IP address. But we'll adjust that later. But for the time being, like I said, this is just proof of concept, so we'll just move on with it, right? Anyway, right, now that it doesn't have the commented lines in there, and again, I don't know if that was wrong or just needed some type of refresh. But now if I refresh this, see it connects without a problem. So yeah, that's where we're at right now with this script. I'm going to just run through some quick limitations. First and foremost, like as far as testing goes, as you can see here, right, this is me testing it. When I'm running Ubuntu, I ran the Windows Ubuntu, right, the installed Ash, and then was running it myself. Crazy thing is that the output I was getting on my computer would be different from running it on the Ash in the OpenWrt router. Hopefully, somebody can tell me why that is. But like, as you can see here, this is exactly what it's doing, right? No new line, and then having a dash E. Uh, but I needed to do that in order for it to come out correctly when I actually ran it on the OpenWrt router. So just keep that in mind that my testing thing is also like a bit finicky. Anyway, let's now go to limitations, right? So real quick, I'm not gonna go through all the limitations, but there's gonna be some pretty big ones that I am going to talk about, right? This last one right here about the script will not get host name of upstream router, right? This also applies to an issue with the downstream router. So when I run that script, as a matter of fact, you can even see it right here, right? It is going to also get the downstream router host name and IP address, because obviously, as far as the upstream router is concerned, right, it is still another device as well, right? So it can get a little bit odd. I don't know like how OpenWrt would handle this in the background. It didn't seem to be an issue for me when I would like try to navigate back to the downstream router with its host name. But yeah, as you can see here, right, it added the router with its IP addresses on that upstream router into the domain entry, right? I'll get that fixed at some point. That's pretty up there on my to-do list. So like it'll be one of the first things I like work on, because it's that, and I wanted to be able to also get the upstream router's host name as well, which I'm gonna have to grab its DHCP route. I'm not gonna be able to do it via what's it called? Via the lease file. Obviously, the lease file isn't gonna have that, right? So yeah, so that was the main limitation one. The next two I'll just go through briefly is that if you have devices with multiple MAC addresses, I don't have a reliable way of handling that right now. The script will still work. It's going to add one of those MAC addresses. I don't know which one, but I think probably the first one it reads. But you know, then that depends on like how the lease file presented it, right? So with that being said, you know, just keep that in mind. I only really see multiple MAC addresses if you got like servers with multiple network cards connected to the same router, like I do, or a desktop PC that also has a Wi-Fi that's also connected to the router, Wi-Fi as well as Ethernet, right? That's going to have two MAC addresses. So just keep that in mind. And then the last one I wanted to go through is going to be about duplicate devices. Well, duplicate host names and duplicate IP addresses. Okay. As far as duplicate host names go, if two different devices, so different IP addresses have the same host name, you though, Jesus Christ, I am like really my brain hurts too much, please forgive me, but you basic iPhone users, right, you basic iPhone users that be having just iPhone as your iPhone name, right? Obviously, if I got three iPhones, let's just say iPhone connected to that router, it is going to add all three of them into the domain name. OpenWrt, as far as what I could tell, does not complain if you have more than one entry with the same host name. Now, obviously, when you try to navigate to it, I have no idea which one is going to pick, and you know that's just a roulette kind of thing, I guess. But as far as like valid entries go, it's not an invalid entry if the devices have the same host name, so it won't matter. So with that being said, just keep that in mind. If you got devices with the same host name, they're gonna whatever results you're looking for is not guaranteed. And then duplicate IP addresses. So I established a duplicate IP address thing for the case if you added the device yourself. So like for example, like my upstream router, like let's say it was actually my upstream server was called like just server, right? And I already added that entry into my DHCP file, right? And obviously it has the same IP address, but just a different host name. As of right now, I only do IP address checks, right? So if a device that we're going through has the same IP address as an IP as a device that already has that same IP address, the entry in that DHCP file, we'll just skip entirely. So we won't even add it. Okay, so just keep that in mind that if you already, which is a good thing, right? If you have a device that if you already entered a device into the OpenWrt settings, right, we won't mess with that, or we won't like potentially duplicate it if it has the same IP address. If it has a different IP address, we don't, like I said, we're planning on doing host name checks or whatever, but as of right now, we just don't. So just keep that in mind. I don't know how OpenWrt will handle the same what is it, the same host name with two different IP addresses. Like I said, that's just that's up in the air for whatever OpenWrt do. But that's it. That's all I'm gonna really go through about this for right now. Like, so I'm gonna post this in the what's it called, I'm gonna post this in the forum and continue to work on it from there, and hopefully maybe somebody could like give me tips on like what I should do. But this is as you see, this is the version number we're starting off with here. All right, because this is as bare bones as we get. And then the last thing I just want to add for anybody that's like, oh, this would be 1,000 times easier if you install this and this, right? I don't want to do, okay, just so we're clear, right? My style is as bare minimum as possible when it comes to extra tools and features, unless we're getting something that like adds a significant what's the word I'm looking for, adds like a significant capability that the router otherwise would not have been able to do. I'm not. I try to stay away from those things. So, like for example, I could easily probably install Bash on these snapshot routers. Sure, right? But all Bash is just it's just a significantly upgraded Ash. But like you should still be able to do the same stuff, which I've proven, obviously, right? In Ash, it's just a little bit more work. But at the end of the day, I like to be more compatible, right? So that people can just like run this straight up without having to worry about needing to install extra stuff, right? That's the first thing. But this is also why I went ahead and installed the OpenSSH tools, right? Because obviously that created a significant capability, i.e., being able to SSH into the other routers and do so without needing to be authenticated. Because as of right now, from what my limited testing did, right, I couldn't generate the keys natively, right? I had to install the SSH like utilities, right, to get the SSH keygen. I installed the utilities. You could have probably just installed the keygen, sure, but utilities in case I might need them later. But yeah, I did that so that way I can be able to generate the key and then give it to what's its face, the upstream router. So with that being said, that's about all I got, and we are going to move from there. Yeah.